Hey guys, Marshall here. I just wanted to make a quick video today kind of showing how I would blend exposures manually without any flash and just ambient lighting in a room. So right now I'm kind of checking some of the bowing in the corners with my lens profile. I just noticed there was some bowing in the corners and some coloration in the top left, so that's why I was clicking in there. Now I'm opening all 9 brackets in Photoshop. So we're gonna watch this open. It's gonna be nice and entertaining. While we're watching this open, I wanted to just make a note that I'm using TK Actions Panel, which is a plugin for Photoshop, and that's how I'm gonna be making my selections for the manual exposure blending. So all 9 brackets are loaded into Photoshop. So what we're going to do next is just auto align all the layers. I'm using a quick action that you can see in the bottom left corner, but also you can do this through the edit menu. All right, so now I'm going to rearrange all the layers. I've picked my favorite layer and I put that at the very bottom. And then I have picked a few other layers that I think would blend nicely. So I'm going to take that first layer, put it in Camera Raw, bring the exposure down a bit, highlights down a bit, shadows up. Now we're going to add a black mask and make a selection using the TK Actions panel for the brightest part of the image. With white as the background color, we're just going to hit delete and remove that part of the mask, and then click the mask and select the feather option to feather that mask so it blends better. Okay, the next step is to grab a bit brighter of an image, take it into Camera Raw. I'm going to bring the exposure down a bit and highlights down a bit, add a black mask, and we're going to use the gradient tool. And we're just going to feather that in from the side because the left side of the image looked a bit dark to me. So I'm using a low opacity gradient to blend that in. And I'm using a radial gradient to kind of add in some of the brighter areas from the brighter exposure and just fix areas I think look a bit dark. The next step is to take a even more underexposed image, do the same thing we did to the first layer, add a black layer mask, select the brightest part of the image using the Actions panel, paint that white, go into the mask options and feather that by about 3 pixels to get a better blend. And I'm even lowering the opacity just a bit more so that it blends a bit better. Here I had a little battle with the mask and the very bottom layer. I'm trying to paint back in some of the brighter parts of that bottom layer just to give it a little more realistic look. Okay, now I'm checking my other exposures to see if I'm going to use them. I'm not going to use any of those brighter exposures. Now I'm working on the middle layer, just adding a bit more brightness back into the scene where I think it needs it. And then we'll continue on to check the other layers and decide which ones we want to keep. I end up getting rid of all these underexposed layers. Okay, in real time here, we're adding a curves layer, an option clicking auto, and we're going to select find dark and light colors. It just does a nice job of adding a little more contrast, fixing some color casts. Adding a levels layer to kind of boost those midtones and roll off the darks. And we'll add a select color layer set to white and lower down the cyan, magenta, and yellow to kind of boost the whites in the image. And I'll lower that opacity down to about 25, and you can really tell that it makes a big difference in the whites. It just kind of boosts the whites. Okay, now I'm going to add some dodge and burn layers through the TK Actions panel. We're going to use the gradient tool to kind of feather in where I want to burn some of the brighter part of the images. And this is the radial gradient tool, and just erasing some of the burn that I don't want. Okay, now switch to the dodge tool. Again, radial gradient, brushing in where I think We can accentuate some of the highlights that aren't blown out, or some of the darker parts of the images that we want to accentuate. Okay, so now we've created a new layer on top. That's a combination of all the layers, and I'm gonna go through and fix dust spots, remove, I guess looks like a hair on my sensor. And now we're gonna go into the transform tool, and we're gonna fix the verticals. First, we're going to use these rulers as guides to kind of tell us where our vertical lines are and how we should straighten them. So I'm just skewing the edges, trying to get those verticals really nice and straight. And I do notice there's some distortion in the lens. Usually the lens corrections in Lightroom will fix that, but this is for some reason particularly wonky. I don't think it was anything I did specifically, but okay, now I'm happy. I'm gonna compress the image and save it and go over to Lightroom for final touches. It's importing, I'll grab it. I'm immediately going to crop in. I don't particularly love the right side of the image, so we're cropping some of that out, fixing some of the distortion, adding a bit of noise reduction, 40% sharpening, and then some last minute adjustments, clarity, dehaze, contrast. Bring the highlights down a bit, shadows up a bit, and we're looking good. Do a little few adjustments for color, and that's it. Hope you guys liked the video.